so he can chase after this football or this baseball superstar local here, chase after his wife and race after him and threaten to get him thrown in jail. And you have to ask those questions.
What a joke.
You got to ask Bill Brown in Santa Barbara County. You have to go to the new sheriff in San Luis, whose name escapes me right now. But I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt that he's a square and honest guy.
Well, I got something I got really important to cover, though, that I
Go
want to
ahead.
get to. And
Go ahead.
well, basically, on the third day of stalking her, I was in my guard uniform, and she was hanging laundry, and I went to Diablo to do my 8-hour shift. And on my way to Diablo, I actually saw him coming towards our apartment. He was in a red car. They'd given him a red car, like an old Polera or something. And I know that because I stalked him. I knew what he had. I knew he had a red car. So I U-turned, and I went back, and I yelled to my wife to jump in the car, don't ask no questions. And we went up to Lompoc Police, and I said, will you arrest him now before he murders us? That is when Leonard Lehane was taken off the streets. Now, I didn't show up to Diablo Canyon to do my 8-hour shift, so they fired me. So at 20 years old, newly married, I was fired from Diablo Canyon for not showing up to work because I was too busy saving my 18-year-old wife from being raped and murdered by Leonard Lehane. And that's the truth of what happened at Diablo. So quit spreading lies about what happened up there, because that's the truth. That's why my life's in danger, because I'm the only one who knows the truth. Now all America knows the truth. And I'll take a lie detector test. I don't care who I got to talk to about this case. You can't break it apart. People have tried to break it apart over the years. No. This happened 31 years ago, and I live it like it happened yesterday.
What do people say?
Oh, they try to say, how did you save her from a jail cell? Well, what happened was I had saved her first in Pismo Beach. Then, after it happened, we packed up from the apartment. We got her mom and my parents, and we all packed up our stuff, and we moved back to Lompoc. Well, then the sheriff's department arrested me 2 days later. So they were 2 days late in arresting me. They actually threw me in a jail cell, and that's when I was bailed out. So, but I had already saved her 2 days earlier. I never said I tried to save her from a jail cell. So quit trying to put words in my mouth and all the other stuff people do. People do not want to believe victims, especially victims of police crime, because they don't want to believe that there are dirty cops out there. And I'm here to tell you that there are dirty cops out there. My life has been threatened over the years numerous times by dirty cops. The most serious threat I had was a guy claiming to be from Blackwater came up to me one day, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, and he was in fatigues, and he just basically came up and he said, you ever heard of the group Blackwater? And I said, well, yeah, I assume you're the government assassin group or something in Iraq. That's what I think. I don't know what they are, but I know it's not a good group, you know. And he said, you know, we can find you anywhere, anytime. And he just walked off, and I said, that's it. That's when I started thinking about, I'm going to go on your show. I've had enough of this garbage. I'm the victim of this case, like I said in the first thing. My ex-wife was the target. We were both the victims. Leave us alone. Now, when we moved back home to Lompoc in 1980, if the police just would have left us alone, we could have saved our marriage. She stayed with me for 5 years after the rape attempt because she knew I'd lost my job to save her life. So it's a Romeo and Juliet story type thing. Juliet stayed with Romeo because she knew what I did, what I gave up for her, you know. But the police involved in the case harassed, threatened, and terrorized both of us for 5 years until she got scared and divorced me. So that's what happened. Now,
I would have thought that would have brought you closer together to both of you being harassed by the police.
Well, she just got scared. She just, you got to imagine, she you know,
yeah,
it's hard to just say, dude. She was 18, newly married to her Prince Charming, and within our 8th month of marriage, I have to put up with this, and then you don't know who to turn to. Who's the good cop? Who's the bad cop? I mean, who's protecting me? Obviously, nobody's protecting me. So this is what I wrote to Joyce Dudley. I wrote this maybe a year and a half ago. I said, or ever since she got. Okay, first, I talked to Ann Bramson. Ann Bramson was the first one I talked to about this case, and her reply was, "Bad things happen to good people." Well, I said, "Yeah, I know that, but I know all the bad people who did the bad thing to me. So why don't you prosecute them?"
And Brantless was a gutless cunt, wasn't she?
Well, I don't want to use that, but she was just a fill-in for Dudley. Now, if you don't believe anything I'm saying, talk to Tim
I
Rooney.
believe you. No, I believe
Talk
you.
to Tim. No, not you, America. Talk to Tim Rooney, the DA investigator, because the DA investigator, Tim Rooney, investigated my case, and everything I'm saying is true. He even, in fact, told me a while back when I called him on the phone before he retired. He said, "Dan, you got the lawsuit. Everything you're saying is true."
Well, you know what?
You know, but you can't find an attorney who'll take your case.
Branson is an assistant DA, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
Her refusing to investigate makes her now an accessory after the fact.
Well, they all are. No one will investigate this. No one will do anything.
Go ahead, read your letter to
Well, this is what I wrote her. I
our
said,
new gutless DA.
I said, attention Joyce Dudley, Dave Saunders, DA Santa Barbara County. As a security guard, eyewitness to and victim of, as well as my ex-wife of the Leonard Lehane and Sheriff Nungary crime spree case and cover-up attempt of that case. These are the charges that should be filed in the case and perpetrators that should be charged. Leonard Lehane and ex-Sheriff Nungary falsified police reports on at least 3 young, vulnerable security guards in order to gain control over their lives by controlling their careers. In my case, Lehane falsified the police report on me in order to blackmail me into letting him have sex with my 18-year-old wife at the time, one of the prettiest girls to ever come out of Lompoc, or I would be arrested by Nungary on the falsified police report, thus ruining my career as a security guard at Diablo Canyon. When I refused, he then made an attempt on my life and to rape my wife. I got to my wife in time, and we drove to Pismo PD, only a few blocks away from Wadsworth. This is when Lehane was taken off the streets. I was in my security guard uniform because I was on my way to work. When I did not show up to work and did not call in, I was fired. No questions asked at 20 years old and newly married. As I stated now in my now approaching 30 emails on this ridiculous police corruption crime spree case that has ruined at least 2 families, probably more like 10. Lompoc police officers, Milt Baldwin, Dan Oss, Ron Hutchins, Onaveros, and ex-police chief Hebert. All these police officers should be charged with falsely arresting me twice. You can't arrest me, the husband, every time someone wants to have sex with, up to and including raping my beautiful now ex-wife, Baldwin. Assault and battery on a security guard, eyewitness to and victim of a police crime and cover-up attempt of that crime. Threatening, harassing, and terrorizing a security guard, eyewitness to, victim of a police crime and cover-up attempt of that police crime. Sheriff Snungary, I got him fired, should be in state or federal prison along with Lehane and all the rest of these criminally corrupt or totally incompetent police officers I am mentioning. That phrase, criminally corrupt or totally incompetent, is a phrase that I coined from Officer Milt Baldwin, because to me that's what he is. He's either one or the other, because he either on purpose arrested me, which would make it criminal, or he did it by accident, which would just make him incompetent. You don't arrest the husband when a career criminal is trying to rape the husband's wife. You arrest the career criminal sexual predator. So it's just an obvious case to me. But then
they couldn't do that, because then it would bring to light that the cops are letting career criminals out of prison to arrest minor criminals. You know, a couple of kids or 19-year-old butthead. You know, and then set people up like Dan Petry and Mrs. Petry. Set them up to be arrested for something they didn't do, just to placate the cops and say, get a drug bust. We need a drug bust.
Ridiculous.
You know, meanwhile, he wants to get him in jail so he can then rape Mrs. Petry.
Yep, that's the truth.
Is that what you expect your county sheriffs to do? Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, well, Dale Shoddy. I was brutally beaten by 3 Lompoc police officers within an hour of informing Sheriff Shoddy that I was suing him and his department for falsely arresting me, so a career criminal just released from prison named Leonard Lehane could try and rape my wife at the time. Tom Jenkins, as stated in my numerous emails on the Lehane-Nungary crime spree case, I was so afraid of being murdered of what I witnessed at Diablo as a newly married 20-year-old security guard, just like Karen Silkwood of the famous movie Silkwood, that I sought FBI protection from all police mentioned in this email after false arrest 1992 was filed by Patricia Berry in 1992 for $1 million. While working as a custodian for Lompoc Unified School District, Tom Jenkins came up to me one night on campus and tried to sell me cocaine. I refused and immediately called the FBI all the way back to Washington, D.C. and complained, probably my 20th complaint on this garbage police corruption case. He was trying to get me to do something illegal to ruin my lawsuit. Vandenberg Air Force Base Security Police Chief Akeo, I told him the same thing I told Sheriff Shoddy, and he was one of the police officers involved in 1992, should be charged an accessory to the whole crime. And as I said, Lompoc bail bondsman Kurt Moore, he's just involved as the bail bondsman. I really don't know his exact, how much he's involved. That's the criminal grand jury to decide there. Tom Snedden, how many years in prison should you serve for prosecuting victims of criminally corrupt or totally incompetent police officers? Judge Eugene Huseman, he's the judge I talked about in the first case. How many years in prison should you serve for sentencing victims of criminally corrupt or totally incompetent police officers? All the attorneys in Lompoc that will not put a stop to all this corruption. As a matter of fact, attorneys all over the country that let this kind of corruption garbage continue should be disbarred. In closing, this is my opinion as the Pinkerton security guard that had the courage to do the right thing back in 1980 and have Lehane and Nunga removed from the streets permanently. I just wonder when I will finally get to move on with my life, what little I have left. I do not ever see another police officer as long as I live unless I dial 911 and need one to protect me or to testify against all these people in this email in a court of law and put all of them in prison where they belong. Retired DA investigator Tim Rooney probably knows all the police, prosecutors, attorneys, and judges involved in this case. All of them should be fired, disbarred, or impeached. There are probably close to 100 people involved in this case. The reason I am taking this aggressive stand is because here it is, 2011, and I am still being threatened and harassed in this case, and to be sure that the police crime my ex-wife and myself were victims of never happens again. And I'll tell you, America, it's humiliating and embarrassing to have to do this, but I have to. I cannot let it go on. I have to tell people my personal pain and heartache because I just can't let it happen to somebody else. It's that simple. I have to stand up to it. You know, my God has made me do it. It's that simple. I just can't let it go on. And so what happened was, once I got written that ticket by Sheriff Oliver, Santa, Vandenberg Village Substation, on 2/19, I went over to sing in Santa Maria, which is I do now. I've been a professional singer since 1995. I do not.
The date of this ticket is what?
2/19/11. So
February 19th,
right.
2011, this year.
So the Sheriff's Department has talked to me about this case since I was on his show last, and a couple of them have talked to me and said, yeah, Dan, we didn't really know, God dang, what do I say? And I said, so you saw the case? He goes, oh yeah, I saw it. And they feel bad, I'm sure, some of the good ones, but it's too late now. But
no, it's not too late, Dan. You could form a de jure grand jury, leave our corrupt Miss Dudley, who followed up the corrupt Miss Stanley, who followed the corrupt Snedden snake and his band of snakes. Most of them are still there at the DA's department. You can ignore them, pull together 25 solid citizens of this county, have them hire a court reporter, take evidence on the record. You swear the court reporter to secrecy, just like the other grand jury that we're used to, but it isn't really the true grand jury. A de jure grand jury is we the people. And Justice Scalia, Antoine Scalia, says this is the correct way we the people should do it.
Right.
And then you can indict these people because of the fraud committed in the police report, because the authorities, even as recently as Branson saying bad things happen to good people, it's been a continuous fraud. The case is not done. The statute of limitations has not run out. You got 2 counties you could sue here. You got multiple jurisdictions. And what's this cop's name? Milt what?
Well, Baldwin, he's retired now, I guess.
But he's still culpable.
Yeah, oh, I know.
He's not off the hook. So, de jure grand jury, people, look it up. I'm going to give you time to get your thoughts together. We're going to go to a clip here, and we'll be back with more from Dan Petry, formerly a baseball star at age 16 out of Lompoc. We're going to take you and show you, I think this is really important. If I had my way, we'd play this tape over and over and over for the next 3 years. It's about your money and how you got to be a slave to a man you never met. Roll tape.